You ever hear somebody say something so unbelievably outrageous that you can't believe that it's real? Because that's what we're talking about today. I'm talking about something so off the wall, so unnecessarily heinous, so stupid that if I said it, my career would probably be over. I wouldn't. If I said this, I would expect people to mostly stop watching me, or they would mainly have the thought, "What the hell is wrong with that dude?" I don't want to listen to what he has to say, even though I don't want to be somebody that I'm put on some sort of pedestal to have anything to say. The whole premise of this channel is for me to be the person hanging out with you at lunch that we're just shooting the shit about whatever. So I'm not exactly on a high pedestal to begin with, but this is the sort of thing that if you heard your friends say to you at lunch, you'd be like, dude, what the fuck did you be like, excuse me? But for some reason, these like old dudes that are just entrenched in positions of power can say stuff like that. And then there's a few news articles about it, and then everybody just kind of moves on. And the person I'm talking about is somebody that's been one of my favorite people to talk about recently. And his name's Javier Tebas. He's the head of La Liga. If you're wondering, yeah, European leagues do have heads, but you don't know most of them. The only reason you know Javier Tebas is because the dude thirsts for the spotlight like an OnlyFans model, right? Like just absolutely I mean, the guy has a sixth sense for how to get himself in the news, but he's done so spectacularly, like unnecessarily spectacularly this time. He likes to dig himself into these kinds of fights, and he's chosen to dig into a particular fight that I find unbelievably stupid, and that is this war on illegal streaming. Particularly like illegal streaming on football or soccer matches. And I promise you, we're going to get into an absolutely insane realm here. But just off the top, catch you up on where I'm at with all this and what I think is a pretty reasonable take. I understand that they own the TV rights it is their thing to sell, right? If you're the clubs, if you're Javier Tebas, if you're La Liga, you own the TV rights and it's your thing to sell. You also have to live in modern reality. Right. Okay. Because modern reality is that the internet is the internet. If you want to acquire things illegally, particularly content, if you want to acquire content illegally, it is not that hard to do it for people in my generation, for people younger than me, for a lot of people older than me. And I'm only 86 years old. So there aren't too many people older than me, but like somewhere up there. Right. It is not that hard to do. That's the way the internet works. It is the price to pay for the ubiquity that is offered by things like the internet, right? Because look at it this way. If the internet did not exist, your TV deals would be a lot lower regardless, because with the internet, you can reach so many more people than before. But if you are living in that modern reality, okay, then you have to acknowledge that if there is a large percentage of piracy going on for your particular football streams, then it's a service issue, right? It is. Well, are those people doing something illegal? Yes, they are technically doing something illegal. But in this modern global internet world, I personally believe that, illegal streaming is a service issue. Because if it was easier to watch the game legally than illegally, I would do it. So would everybody else if you had a couple of bucks to spare, right? Like if it is easier to pay $5 a month to watch, or $10 a month, or maybe 15, right, to watch all La Liga matches, right? Then you just go to the site and boom. But it is not that easy, right? It's not. But of course, that is a conversation that I feel like people like Javier Tebas are probably not ready to have. Instead, they decide to declare war on people and companies that are facilitating or at least turning a blind eye, or in this case, I don't even think turning a blind eye, just not being absolutely ridiculously proactive in stopping the facilitation of illegal streaming. So let's get to what Javier Tebas actually said, because he was interviewed, because he's always being interviewed for something, I don't know. And then he just says this: if you go to Google and type in, "I want to buy cocaine" or "child sex." Now I'm going to stop you right there. Because I feel like at this point, you probably know where we're going, right? I feel like at this point, you're like, there's no way he's about to compare that to that's where we're going. Don't worry. He said nothing appears if you Google those things. But if you type in "free football," it appears. One is considered a serious crime. but the other is not. And it's the same thing. No, no, no. I mean, there's more. And we're going to read it. Okay, because that's what we do here. I am nothing but a studious journalist. Sorry, I can't even get through that. But that full stop, I'm sorry. The hell is wrong with you? Like, dude, if I had a family member that said this to me, I would be alarmed enough to be like, I'm going to check that dude's search history, right? Like, I'm probably not going to associate with that guy, even if they're a family member. And I'm also, I'm going to tell other people to avoid him. And he probably can't live within 100 feet of a school. Like, just that sentence, full stop. If you go to Google and type in, I want to buy cocaine or child sex, nothing appears. But if you type in free football, it appears. One is considered a serious crime, but the other is not. It's the same thing. We just had the head of La Liga said that child sex and illegal streaming of football matches are the same thing. How? I mean, how many times did you go to Epstein's Island for real? But how out of touch can you be? How out of touch can you be? Do you realize what sort of catastrophic crime you're talking about over here? Right. I'm going to remove the cocaine part for a second. Right. But like, do you realize what sort of catastrophic crime you were talking about that you just compared to the illegal? I can't think off the top of my head, probably because I'm blinded by how insane this is, of a more out of touch, just, I can't find the right word, insensible. Like, this is like talking to an AI or something. Like, there's no compassion here. There's no understanding of the human difference between these two things. I mean, this is like a troubling, almost like psychopathic thought process here. I am bothered on a deep human, I'm chronically online. I see some crazy shit all the time. But when you really internalize this sentence, I am disturbed by the lack of humanity coming from Javier Tebas here. And I am not usually a big proponent of like, well, let's absolutely grill this guy for something he said offhand, right? Because I'm somebody that says everything offhand, right? I am just kind of riffing. And then you guys stick around and I keep riffing. And that's just kind of basically how this works. But there's a difference between like, I kind of put my foot in my mouth here and comparing child crimes to illegal football streaming, saying specifically that it's the same thing. That is just it's gross. I feel like I need to take a shower after reading that, but we'll read the rest of what he said. Not that he deserves it, because this is insane. On Telegram and Discord, there are groups of 50 and 60,000 people of all languages with links to view illegal content. In Spain, they're going to ban Telegram for piracy. In the end, the judge who is willing to do it backed down. I like the way that's worded. Like, they finally got it into the court of a judge who was willing to do it, but they just didn't pay him enough or something. They and Discord are giving a lot of information on how you can get this content. I don't believe Telegram and Discord are providing that information. I believe those are communications platforms where people on them are providing that information, but you do you, King. We will also go after Meta because it is also happening in WhatsApp communities and they are not collaborating to help clarify it. That's just a weird translation there. But basically, Tebas is threatening Telegram, Discord, and Meta because they're helping facilitate illegal streaming. Here's the bad news. Even if, and they shouldn't be able to do this, but even if Javier Tebas, by some stroke of like overwhelming political power, is able to ban Telegram, Discord, and Meta, or, get them to pay a giant fine or whatever to I guess, up their content moderation policies. Like, what, you're supposed to be going through kind of individual messages or looking for particularly large groups to try and identify. Like, it is hard to moderate content, especially for Meta, Telegram, and Discord. I have some pity for them right now. Obviously, they've had some giant oversights that could have been solved, but there is a lot of traffic on those sites, and automated content moderation stuff can be very complex to code and administer. Like, it is not the easiest job in the world. I don't think that it is. I think this stuff is just able to get through the cracks pretty easily because there's just a ton of people doing it. But even if you're able to remove all of these, right? Like, you're able to get them to pay huge fines, and then you get all of this stuff banned from these three sites. It's the internet. There's always another way to communicate. And like, through that avenue of communication, some dude in Thailand and some dude in India are going to link up and swap a link to be able to watch a match, right? Like, because there is, I mean, unless you're trying to ban the internet, there's going to be a way to communicate where you can facilitate the exchange of a live streaming link in order to be able to watch the match for free. So you're kind of like, you're losing the forest for the trees here. Now, I don't think that metaphor made any sense, but like, this is an approach that's never really going to solve the problem. The way you solve the problem is making it easier to pay for and access the games to begin with. But that's not the main story for me, and probably not for you either. So we're talking about one of the leaders in world football, right? One of the people that has immense power in the global game, and somebody that's not always been the bad guy in my stories. Like, somebody that has been able to go toe-to-toe with Florentino Perez and is at least a giant force of personality to kind of counterbalance some of those other giant forces that move around in the football world, saying something that would get any reasonable content creator canceled and probably ruin their career, right? Like, saying something that is so insane, it makes me question whether they should be in charge. I am clearly not the person to be able to make that decision, but let me just read it for you. If you go to Google and type in, "I want to buy cocaine," or "child sex," nothing appears. Now, I didn't think of this the first two times I read that. Have you tried that? How do you know nothing appears? Did you just test it right before you came on stage just to be sure so you could make like a really cool rhetorical point? Or like, you got something you want to talk about in therapy or like in jail? But if you type in "free football," it appears. One is considered a serious crime, but the other is not. It's the same thing. I guess the only way it's the same thing can be true is that it's a technical violation of the law. Every other instance where you're saying this is the same thing is not true. And the actual meaning of this statement is just wild. I'm never gonna really understand unless I sit in a room with Javier Tebas and he has a reason I can't think of how this made any sense to say. It's so out of touch. It's so inhuman. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable. I don't think I can read it anymore. I'm just like, you just get the heebie-jeebies and you're like, man, I need to go like watch 5-minute videos of puppies like falling over or something and like trying to catch a ball and then missing, right? Because that'll just reset my chakras after this. I mean, this feels eerie and like weirdly diabolical because he says one is considered a serious crime, but the other is not. I'm gonna keep it a stack with you, Home Slice. One of those is a real serious crime, and the other, it's not near as serious a crime. Please tell me you would agree with me on that. Goodness gracious.